From each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are. From memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried. And with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight. Reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving the Magic podcast. I'm Kajer.
And I'm Jeffrey, and we are back today with the 103rd Disney feature-length film, and also the last film of the year 1971, from December the 13th of 1971. It is a film called Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Bedknobs and Broomsticks is the return of Mr. Banks himself, David Tomlinson, in a prevalent role, and is also the Disney debut of Mrs. Potts herself, Angela Lansbury. When you hear the name Angela Lansbury, what do you think about?
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast? Not Murder, She Wrote?
Well, I guess.
But, yeah, so she is the main character in this film, Angela Lansbury. Everybody knows her. Everybody loves her. But Bedknobs and Broomsticks, for those who don't know, is a live-action film. It is based upon, it's a half live-action, half animated film, sort of like Mary Poppins. It is based on the books The Magic Bedknob and Bonfires and Broomsticks by Mary Norton. Like I said, it combines live-action and animation, much like Mary Poppins, and the music is by the Sherman Brothers, also much like Mary Poppins. Would you like to start us off with a synopsis about Bedknobs and Broomsticks?
An apprentice witch, 3 kids, and a cynical magician con man's search for the missing component to a magic spell to be used in the defense of Britain in World War II.
That's a good way to lay it out. That's a mouthful, though. Any opening thoughts about the movie Bedknobs and Broomsticks?
Yes, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. I thought I had seen this before.
I knew you didn't see this before. I knew it.
I thought I had seen this before, and I remembered disliking it. And then watching it, it occurred to me what movie I was thinking of instead of this one. Would you like to take a guess?
I don't know. Knowing you, probably like the Chronicles of Narnia or something.
Mm-mm.
Elaborate.
This is why I said I'm probably going to get some hate for this. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay, first off.
And I think it was because
Whoa.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks. So Bedknobs reminded me of the bed scene in Willy Wonka.
Time out.
And in my mind,
How could you hate Willy Wonka? It's a perfect movie. I have a Willy Wonka tattoo.
Good for you. It wasn't one of my favorites as a child. I don't know.
I knew you hadn't seen this, but
Well,
I've seen it enough for the two of us.
Well, that's what I had confused it with because of the bed scene with all the grandparents.
Well, then are we going to save you? There's no grandparents in bed in this film.
I know, but that's why I thought of it. The bed scene with the grandparents in it for Willy Wonka was what made me think I had seen this movie because of Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Ugh.
I know. Ugh.
Well, we're going to save you to know what you actually thought about it until the end.
Okay. Well, just so you know. I completely thought we were going to be watching Willy.
I mean, I also love Willy Wonka, so it's cool. Um,
You don't know how long I've been waiting to tell you this. So I wanted to catch your reaction on film.
well, either way, to some, I say that this is a classic Disney film. To others, it might not be the most known. It has a pretty all-star ensemble. You could tell that it was made. Well, like I know it was like they started making it and they stopped making it to make Mary Poppins. That's probably some of your facts. I don't want to dive too deep, but then they went back to it after the success of Mary Poppins. Um, but before you do say some facts, this is actually the last film released before the death of Walt Disney's surviving brother, Royal Disney, who helped make the company with him, Roy Disney, who died 1 week later. Speaking of, that means I need to fact check myself, but that means that this is the first film after Walt Disney World was a thing.
Well, I mean, if it came
When
out
did
in
the million
1972, yes.
71? It's getting on December 13th, 1971.
I mean, so it probably
But
did.
when did the $1 million duck come out? Here, talk about your facts while when the $1 million duck came out.
Okay, so some facts I found before we dive into it. So Julie Andrews initially turned down the role for Ms. Price. She eventually reconsidered, believing she owed her movie career to Walt Disney Studios and wanted to work there again. But when she told the studio she changed her mind, Miss Angela Lansbury had already been cast. Um, Also, Dick Van Dyke was offered the role of Professor Brown, but turned it down because he felt the character was too similar to Bert from Mary Poppins.
I can see it. So the dad of Mary Poppins took it and said,
I guess.
Mr. Banks.
And all I could think was, can you imagine them again? It would have been so confusing. I feel like.
But magical. Well, Angela Lansbury and David Tomlinson do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And then just before you continue to tag myself in real quick,
Hmm.
I was able to verify that the $1 million duck came out in June.
Okay.
And as
This
we
is the first
know
one.
that Walt Disney World opened in October of 1971. So this is the first, not only is this the last film that Roy O. Disney was alive for, he died 1 week later. This was also the first film after the beloved Walt Disney World was open.
Nice. Um. Also, uh, that one's not really that great of a fact. Um. Like you said, the Sherman brothers wrote songs
Mhm.
for this movie, and it was the last feature film for a very long time for Disney Studio to have the Sherman brothers write a song. They did not write another song for another Disney movie until the Tigger movie in 2000.
Oh, that's a
Mhm.
fact.
Yeah.
What movie
They
has the Sherman
did.
Brothers in it? Well,
Well, they
people play the
okay.
Sherman Brothers.
What?
I said, what Disney movie?
I don't remember. Do you want to tell me?
Saving Mr. Banks.
Okay, there you go. I was not a fan of that.
Mr. Banks is in this film.
Yes. So they did briefly return in the 1980s to write songs for Epcot Center, which I thought you would find interesting.
Mhm.
Um, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Let's see. This was the last Disney branded movie to receive an Academy Award until The Little Mermaid in 1989.
It's a good film.
Others received nominations and two Touchstone Picture movies, The Color of Money in 1986 and Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 1988.
We will not be covering Who Framed Roger Rabbit because it came out with a Touchstone. But yeah.
Really? Because it's in parks.
Doesn't mean it's a Disney feature-length
That's
film.
ridiculous.
We have enough to do already.
Okay. Um,
Touchstone
if you're
film.
listening to us, I hope you enjoyed my sound effects. And
And
for one of our very special listeners out there, a fact that they're gonna love. This was the very last film release that was greenlit by Walt Disney himself.
Makes sense because they started making this film before they made Mary Poppins,
Exactly.
so that was a long time ago. But
Yeah.
you ready to dive right in?
Well, it also, the filming for this lasted for 57 days, while the animation and the special effects required 5 months each to complete. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I felt like it would take more than 52 days to film, or 57 days to film a movie. Um, and this is the first live action and animated Disney films released in the 1970s. The second one would be Pete's Dragon in
Which I also showed too.
1977.
Hmm. You know why it didn't take that long to film this? Because they had the magical transport spell, so they got to go all over this.
I guess.
All right, I'm gonna dive right in here. So then you can sprinkle those in after if you would like to.
Okay.
So we start off with a storybook illustrating the story. During the opening credits was also that storybook also includes the second Disney feature-length film.
It's not really a
Who
storybook though. I had it being a reminiscent of a storybook like art opening because it was never technically like flipping of pages. It was like one big scroll that the camera just kept following. It wasn't like you're like in Snow White and
No, it
those
was
movies
like a magic spell book
that didn't turn
animations.
pages. It never turned pages.
I don't know, but
Anyway,
it's the second Disney feature-length film to feature swastikas right from the beginning. The first film was a long time ago. Uh, Victory through air power.
well, speaking of swastikas, this film has its roots in true story, based somewhat on a Christian occultist, Dion Fortune, who, with others, practiced magic during the war effort against Nazi Germany.
Yeah, so like obviously, that there's Nazi Germany that's going on.
Yep.
They're invading Europe or England, wherever they are, whatever. All
Mhm.
right, so we start off at a beachside in England in August of the year 1940.
Mhm.
The screen says, again, a time of valor, a time for valor, a time of whispered events, now faded with the passing years. We see someone pull up in a car, dressed as a British officer, asking for directions, but a guy is painting over the sign just in case the Nazis come. The guy's like, "Well, I'm a British officer," and the guy says, "Well, that's exactly what Nazis would say." Um,
I mean,
so that he's painting over the signs. That same British officer, then does arrive via car at a closed museum that is now an evacuation center for children.
mhm. You know what he should have had the guy say when he said, "I'm a British officer," and the guy was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what a German soldier would say." He should have said, "Say whispering waterfalls."
I don't get it.
That was one of my things that I learned in history class. So the Allied forces would say things like that. So if you weren't sure if the person was German or not, you would make them say something like whispering waterfalls because in German they have a hard time saying W, so they would say it with V's. So it'd be whispering waterfalls.
Well, there you go.
But yeah,
Um,
anyway, fun little history fact.
we see some ladies working inside with numerous children. They're trying to get them evacuated for there's bombs going off in England.
Mm-hmm.
We then see that there's three children left over with the last name Rollins,
Oh,
and they
leftover.
and they get told that they are waiting for Miss Price to come get them.
Mm-hmm.
We also hear and see some older British military men that are marching and singing. They're like marching in line. They're singing a very catchy number called "The Soldiers of the Old Guard,"
Mm-hmm.
and they are marching. So like they're like the local battalion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we also then see Angela Lansbury's character arrive on a motorcycle with a sidecar, and she is Miss Price. She is coming because she has a package that was delivered to the museum slash evacuation center.
Mm-hmm.
It is a package from Professor Brown and the School of Witchcraft. She is brought inside to be shown the last three children are to go with her, much to her shock and disapproval. She said that she's not there for the children. Children her don't get on, as she puts it, but she has too much to work to do. But due to the ordinance, she has to keep them until they can at least find a more suitable home. We're up to date.
You
Cool. Um, so then she goes outside, puts them all in the sidecar with her new package, and there's a clergyman outside who's like, "Oh, I'm going to come and preach to these people." She says no to them, and they go on their way.
Mhm.
One of the kids says it's a bit murky outside because they're used to England or they're used to London or whatever. Um, so the kids are shocked that she lives alone in a very big house, kind of setting the scene. They go inside and they encounter a black cat. Um, do you remember what the black cat's name is?
Cosmic Creepers.
And do you know why the black cat's name is Cosmic Creepers?
Because she doesn't believe in naming cats ridiculous things. And that's the name it came with.
That's right, Cosmic Creepers,
Kind of like how I said cats deserve sophisticated names,
like
and that's why
Cosmic
I have
Creepers.
Winston Churchill.
Speaking of World War II, the kids are to sleep in the father's bedroom.
Hmm.
Supper is at 6, and they will wash thoroughly. The kids are not excited about washing because clearly they watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The kids whisper. Miss Price overhears the kids whispering about running away to London.
Hmm.
Um, she's like, I have great hearing. You don't have to run away. Blah blah blah.
Hmm.
That night, when the children are sleeping, Miss Price runs and grabs her new package and goes into the basement to reveal that it is a broom.
She locks herself in there.
Yep,
With unbeknownst with the cat.
with the cat. Cosmic Creepers.
He sneaked in.
She's all excited about this broom. There's also like a note.
You forgot to mention when she made dinner for them, she said there was no fried food in her house.
That's right. Only like cabbage or something.
Rose hips and all this, I don't know, witchy like things.
Mhm.
Okay.
Um, it's a broom and a note like with like a spell.
Hmm.
It's like a note from the College of Witchcraft, um, that now pronounces her a apprentice witch.
Okay, I have to stop you
I
because
still can't believe you thought this was Willy Wonka, but go ahead, continue.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Apparently, that's the one thing that like I really did not like out of Willy Wonka was the bed scene. I don't know. That's
Uh,
anyway. So, Cosmic Creepers, if you've never seen this film, reminds me so much of Salem from the 90s TV
Sabrina
show.
Teenage Witch.
Yeah, Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
This came out many years before.
I feel like Cosmic Creepers was probably the prototype for Salem.
I mean, he didn't talk though,
That's why he was the prototype.
I guess.
Anyway, and also, I feel like with her getting her letter telling her, like, oh, you're an official apprentice, da, 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 I felt like there was so much inspiration from that probably caused Harry Potter.
Probably because this is a great movie.
Anyway.
Um, at the same time, the kids also wake up, and they're going to begin their escape to London.
Hmm.
Um, Miss Price is practicing to learn how to ride the broom. It tells her that she has to ride it like a lady, but she's like, forget that. She's going to just straddle it. She successfully recites the spell, and much to the shock of the cat, begins to clumsily fly around the room. She then soars through the air on this broom. And as the kids are escaping out their window, they see Miss Price, and decide that she's a witch. But this witch don't fly good, does she? Um, she then crashes, and she whatever she it doesn't go well. She crashes into the ground. The kids decide that they're going to use this as an opportunity to hold this knowledge against her to get what they want. So the next morning at breakfast, they say, lovely flying weather for last night, wasn't it?" And admitting that they know that she is a witch. Anything else they got going on so far?
Mm-mm.
They use it for leverage to get what they want, including money. Um, Charles is the oldest boy. I don't know if the girl's older or younger, but Charles is the oldest boy. I don't think I even wrote the girl's name down. What's the girl's name?
I don't think I wrote it
Yeah.
down either.
So Charles challenges her to change him to a toad. So she pulls out her spell book and she changes Charles
Rabbit.
to a rabbit. She's very close. Except that we learn that her spells don't last very long because again she's only an apprentice witch. The cat, Cosmic Creepers, kind of like our cat, is trying to join the fun right now, as you're going to see if you're watching on the YouTube. Here comes our cat. But the real cat, Cosmic Creepers, is on the prowl for the rabbit, but then Charles changes back. The real cat in the movie. Charles changes back to the boy. Um, the other kids convince Charles that they can all be friends, and Miss Potter says that her work is very important for the war effort. This is what she talks about how like she's trying to
Price.
Miss Price. I said Potter by accident.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, I guess. Miss Price says that I even wrote down the word Potter too. Miss Price says that her work is very important for the war effort.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so she's going to use something for the war efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. They decide that they're going to keep a pact and they're going to use something valuable. She's going to give the children one of her spells, a traveling spell, to like hold against her, basically. So she's not going to like do something wrong for them, right? Like that's where we're at. She's going to give them the traveling spell, but they need something to twist for the spell. So the young boy Paul empties his pockets, including a knob from the bed that they were sleeping in. So they're going to use this knob because they can twist. Did you ever sleep in a bed that had knobs that came off? Because my grandmother's house used to have that. Yeah.
I don't think so.
So like, my dad's mom's house used to have like the knobs that like came off the bed, so I could have used this. But they will use that. The knob then begins to glow as they recite the thing, and it's gonna work. They have to put it on the bed and turn the knob to the left, and then they will travel. But it only works for Paul because it's his spell, right? It's Paul's spell.
Well, it makes sense because the oldest one didn't really trust her as much. I wouldn't have gave him nothing.
It's true. Well, we will learn why the oldest boy doesn't believe in a little bit.
Yes, keep going.
She then receives another letter from the College of Witchcraft, stating that due to the war, the College of Witchcraft is abruptly closing, and she cannot get her last valuable lesson, her valuable last lesson. Bummer. So a bummed out Mrs. Price asks Paul if she can use the knob to travel to London, and he says no, he wants to go to the jungle. So she explains to the little boy that she needs his help basically, and she explains everything else. And this is where the Paul says the wonderful line, "What's that have to do with my knob?" Which if you try to buy a shirt from this anywhere, it says, "What's that have to do with my knob?" on it.
Okay.
And you thought this was about Willy Wonka. She explains that she has to go see Professor Brown to stop the war efforts and save everybody. So Paul gives her the bed knob. Would you like to talk about them getting ready to use the bed knob to travel for the first time?
They go upstairs to the bed.
They blow it out so it doesn't scrape the walls.
Yes. And she tells them to dress warm because they don't know how windy it's going to be.
Yeah, something for her hair, right?
Cold. Yeah, so she grabs like a scarf for her hair, kind of like my great grandmother used to wear.
Mm-hmm.
And the oldest
Charles
boy is like, "No,
I'm not going.
I'm not going."
It's all this is rubbish," she says.
I would have been like, "Okay, pain in the butt, stay here."
So then we learn that Charles is 11 going on 12.
Mhm.
And that's the age that Miss Price's father called the age of not believing. And they break into a beautiful song about it.
Mhm.
And basically it says about how when all the make-believe is through at the age of not believing, which is why we talked about that earlier.
Mhm.
The rest of them get on the bed, and Paul places the knob back on the bedpost, and Paul repeats their destination to go to Professor Emilius Brown of the College of Witchcraft of London.
Mhm.
He taps the knob and turns it to the left. But at the last second, the cat, whose name is Cosmic
Cosmic
Creepers,
creepers.
scares Charles, and he jumps on the bed, and the room turns a bunch of colors, and the bed vanishes, and then we see all four of them traveling through the air on the bed.
Mhm.
Okay. They arrive in a London alleyway. Miss Price is like, all right, I have to go find this Mr. Brown dude. So she leaves the children on the bed and she goes to find Professor Brown. But then we see a man walk by with a briefcase that reads College of Witchcraft or whatever. And so the kids decide to follow him because they see him first. We then see Professor Brown, who is played by Mr. Banks, like we said, who is putting on a one-man unsuccessful back alley magic show, proving that he is a fraud.
Mhm.
Want to talk about this magic show that he's doing?
Uh-uh.
No? Okay.
It like you said, was pretty much a con man show, like the synopsis said.
Yeah, he's like just trying to
It's
get
all,
people's money and stuff.
I don't know, like halfway tricks and
Yeah. So Miss Price is upset with the children for wandering off, but they say that like they found Professor Brown and she's upset, so she calls him out.
mhm.
She introduces herself and calls him out for closing the college, and he tells her no refunds. The kids then stop him from trying to run away because he's a con man. She then turns him into a rabbit. But then he quickly changes back, and he is blown away that a spell from his school actually worked. He,
Imagine that.
he says that he just found a book that had a bunch of nonsense words, and he moved them around, and he didn't think it actually worked, and he was just conning people for money.
Can you imagine
I mean,
conning people for money?
yeah.
But you just happened to get one that actually knew how to use the word.
Mm.
Anyway.
So it's just a bunch of nonsense words from a book he found. She demands to see the book. So they all decided that they're going to travel to Professor Brown's house on the
Mhm.
bed, of course, much to Professor Brown's shock that the bed actually works. Um,
And the oldest boy has completely changed his attitude.
Mhm.
He had an attitude adjustment on that ride.
The age of not believing.
There you go.
So they roll up to like this beautiful house, and they're like, "Where'd you get this house?" And he's like, "Oh, there's like an unexploded bomb out front." So he just like stole someone's house that they left because of an unexploded bomb. She demands the book from
Sounds
him.
safe.
She demands the book from him, but he requires that they eat first. Um, and she talks about how the last course, like the last spell that she was going to get from the college before it quote unquote closed down, was the spell for substitutionary locomotion. She's going to use this substitutionary locomotion to save the war efforts. The kids at the same time are playing in the nursery, because all my favorite Disney films have a nursery in them. 101 Dalmatians, Peter Pan, Mary Poppins, they all have a nursery in them. Professor Brown explains uh, how successful they could be if they team up with her magic power skills and his showbiz. What were you gonna say?
So the girl's name's Carrie,
Okay.
and there are several dolls in this nursery that she was admiring, and they were modeled after the international puppets in the Small World ride in Disneyland.
Nice. Walt Disney World that opened up 2 months with once.
Yeah.
Do you know that their hair grows because of the humidity of the water in there? That's creepy, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah, our cat, Cosmic Creepers over here is using his locomotion spell to go all over the place. Yeah, we learned that her name is Eglantine. Miss Price's name is Eglantine, and he breaks into a song all about Eglantine. And and then like they're in like this giant
What a
library.
name.
Yeah, they're in this giant library, right?
Future children of mine. Your
Eglantine.
name will be Eglantine.
So they're in this giant library, and like he's like pushing around. I'm like one of those like ladders,
Mhm.
and I wrote that this is the first of multiple Angela Lansbury Disney films where someone is singing in a large house library, like Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, very much. And I think wasn't there one in her what do you call it? The TV show?
Oh, probably. I'm
I
sure they
feel
weren't
like
singing in it. Murder She Wrote. I'm sure
yeah,
they
but
weren't
I
singing.
feel like there was a
Yeah. I don't know. Deep dive the magic pod at
I
gmail.com.
feel like there was a library
If
in
you're
that.
above
I
a certain age and you watched Murder She
don't
Wrote. The kids are all looking at like a book. And Paul, the youngest, says that it's the Isle of Nabumbu, and he keeps fighting that it's an actual place, and you can tell it's an actual place because of the pictures of the book.
hmm
In the book, we see a bunch of animals wearing fun things, and the kids are like, "It's just a book," and he's like, "No, it's real, whatever." So then it cuts back to the adults in the library, and she's using more magic to convince Mr. Brown to finally show her where the magic book is.
hmm
We learn that it is the spells of Astaroth, right? Astaroth. Um,
I was thinking this is where Lucasfilms got the name for its things.
I guess. So she arrives to the last page, and she's looking for the spell. She's like, I found the spell for substitutionary locomotion, and she's all excited. But she looks at the page, and the last page is ripped out of the book, and it is missing. And he admits that that's why he closed the college because he can't con people if he doesn't have the actual stuff. Um, he talks about that
Can you imagine?
when he tried to swindle it off somebody, the book tore, and he got one half, and the other person got the other half. So she's like, "Well, where did you get this book from?" And then they start talking about Portobello Road. The one place to find it is Portobello Road, which is like a street carnival, street merchant, and they sing this lovely song about it, and they travel on the bed to it. Would you like to talk about Portobello Road?
It was a very catchy song. It gets stuck in your head, and I'm really bad to get earworms, and all I can think of is I don't want to talk about it because I'm gonna start singing it.
Good one. It's a good song. Um,
It's very catchy.
Lots of people are there are trying to hustle their products. It's very like street merchanty.
hmm
But the
All sorts of people.
Yep. Um, e- Everyone is breaking into this long Portobello Road song and like this dance number. Everyone's like just dancing
hmm
all at the street merchant. But a man overhears them trying to find the book. And this man, who's like a street vendor, mafia type guy, um, holds up Professor Brown with a knife,
hmm
and he brings the whole family and the bed to the bookman. The bookman is an elderly gentleman who looks like the banker from Mary Poppins. Um,
But it's not.
no, which would have been a good actually cameo for
Dick Van
Dick
Dyke.
Van Dyke to do if he did it. But um, he has also been looking for the other half of the book because he has a half. He has the other half of the book. So the sensible thing for them to do is cooperate. What were we gonna say?
You don't say they should have just swapped.
I mean, he's the bookman. Um,
I'll give you my half if you give me your
so
half.
they trade their halves,
hmm
but they're both looking for the exact same spell. So they find out that basically
The spell's not
the
there.
spell's not there. All it says is that these five words are on one page. On another page it says engraved on the star worn by Astaroth. And that's it. They both fell for it.
hmm
And we learned that Astaroth, who wears a chain with like a star on it that has the
hmm
words to the thing. You're right over there, Miss Laffy Taffy. What's going on? Just having a good time.
Just listening to you talk.
Astaroth, who was a mythical person who was doing magic on animals
hmm
and to make them more lifelike. But they rebelled against him and they ended up killing him and stealing his powers. And then they sailed away on the sea, and people swear that they see that they have seen an animal or island ruled by animals, which is the Isle of Naboombu, where we heard that before.
I'm telling you, George Lucas watched this
Maybe.
and he was like, I've got all sorts of names now. Tatooine,
It's true. Well, it's also like where like
Naboo.
Jar Jar Binks, yeah, lived underwater too, like convenient. So people have seen an animal or seen an island with animals, the Isle of Naboombu, which we obviously had heard earlier because Paul remembers it from his book earlier in the film. Um, and he has stolen the book. Like Paul like took the book with him.
Mhm.
But Price Brown and the kids um they like stop him from giving it away. The bookman threatens him and like threatens them all with a knife and like says, "But you can't leave. The door's locked." So they just hop on the bed and the bed disappears. And they are off to the island of Naboombu.
Naboo. Just kidding.
The criminals are shocked that the bed took off, but then the bed plunges into the water, where everything except for the main characters become animated. Would you like to talk about the water part of the island of Naboombu?
So it very much gave me Little Mermaid
So
vibes.
I said Alice in Wonderland vibes, but yeah, I can see that.
And I feel like a lot of the fish in this scene inspired some of the fish and like the dance moves in The Little Mermaid.
Yep. So they like there's a lot going on. There's a bunch of fish. They're all animated. They're
Mhm.
singing. They're dancing. Mr. Codfish warns them of the island's troubles. They all sing along about bobbling along on the bottom of the beautiful briny sea, which I feel like also will be on your head. That's a catchy song.
Yeah.
Bobbing along on the bottom of the beautiful briny sea. Say that 5 times fast. They watch a fish concert, not the band. And they dance. Um, they do this dance number, and then Brown and Price participate, and they end up winning first place in the dance competition. Um, but then all of a sudden, when like receiving their trophy, all the like the water life, the fish, they all start to scatter because this fish line comes down and it ends up like catching the bed, and somebody fishes like someone was fishing, and they end up getting pulled out of the water by a bear. Uh, the bear is upset because catching people is illegal.
Hmm.
Peopling, like he called it. Peopling is illegal instead of fishing. The sign says no peopling allowed, order of the king. Right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about this bear?
I just felt like he was blue in a different color.
Like see it.
Brown blue.
Brown blue, the crayon color. Brown blue. Um,
Brown blue.
uh, but then Paul reads in his book that anyone can see the king by law, but they are told that the king doesn't like people.
Mm.
But the bear then has to lead them, because it's law, to right into the island to the king, who the king already doesn't seem happy. He's in like a frightful rage. And do you know why he's not happy? Why is the king not happy?
I did not write it down.
Because he loves soccer and the Royal Cup can't take
No.
place that day. Because of course he does. So Professor Brown offers that he will help with the soccer experience, and he we see that the king and the king, which is an animated lion, and we learn that Professor Brown has volunteered to be the referee of the soccer game. We see that the king is wearing a star, and they are trying to like the star that they're trying to find. This dude's wearing around his neck. The Lion King, literally the Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
What you got?
His name's Leo.
Okay, I didn't write it down.
And in official merchandise guidebooks, his full name was King Leonidas, after the Spartan king who died in 480 BC. Also, a king and leader in the movie The Spartans.
And the king of the island of Naboombu. So we see the soccer game, and everyone on the island is very excited. Um, it looks like all the animals in Jungle Book and Robin Hood are there. It kind of looks like it's like Predator versus Prey, right? It
That's
looks like Predator versus Prey. Kind of.
yes, that's funny that
It looks like right out of Robin Hood for sure.
but you said Robin Hood. So I said it looked like they had used several reused animated animals from the Jungle Book and Fantasia. Because the hippo,
Like the
the
birds, the
the
birds.
hippo, the ostrich, the crocodile, and then it had like your Jungle Book characters
Yeah.
as well, like the elephant and stuff, and it was just like, oh, look, it all comes together.
Well,
Because we haven't got to
they're
Robin
all
Hood
on
yet.
the island. Yeah, we got to Robin Hood, right? The island of the Boom Boo soccer game, and it is Predator versus Prey. Um,
I
they
totally thought they were playing basketball
no soccer, and then the
because it was an orange ball.
it was soccer though, 100%, because the they're like kicking it around and they're blowing it up in the air. Yeah, look it up. Um,
I guess. I
um,
guess in my mind
the
it was because it was an orange ball. I was like,
the
okay.
king, he keeps yelling for everybody to move it around, and the animals begin to fight over the ball, literally.
Hmm.
Mr. Brown keeps getting trampled. He keeps getting run over by all
Hmm.
these animals. Lots of animated animal comedy, sports game hijinks. The ball ends up exploding and flying off, much to the anger of the king, who then knocks the deflated ball into the goal for the win. Professor Brown successfully, after the game, when they're all excited about the win, Professor
Hmm.
Brown successfully switches the desired star for his referee whistle.
Hmm.
So like he gets the star and he gives his whistle to the king.
Hmm.
They scoot out to escape the king, but then the king's bird assistant notices the stolen star, and the king is livid, so he starts to chase them. The king comes running after them, but as Paul then gets the dob onto the bed, and Miss Price turns him into a rabbit, and they escape back to her house where this whole story began.
Hmm.
And they have the star. Um, Mr. Price or Mr. Brown says something stupid like, I'm gonna hold on to the star because women always lose things, which I think is ridiculous and rude, but whatever. The times, I guess. Um,
He was also a con man.
that's true. That's true.
He's probably about to take off with it.
Also true. The cat has to scoot out of the way when the bed returns.
Cosmic Creepers.
Cosmic Creepers. She asks Professor Brown that she's gonna use her shoe, like take off his shoes, because he's that she's gonna practice her new spell, which is um what's it called again? Something locomotion.
Yeah.
I wrote it down
It starts,
later.
I thought it started with an S.
Yeah, so she's gonna whatever, we'll get there. Um so then they end up singing the whole song about it after, but
Hmm.
so take off his shoes because she's gonna practice her new spell. Um but then they learn that going from one world to the other, the all the magic from the star disintegrated and the star is gone because it couldn't survive going from one room or one world to the other. So then she's like, she wishes that she remembered the words, and Paul's like, I remember the words. She's like, what? And he's like, um, everyone's like, well, don't bug Miss Price. She's busy. She's busy. And he's like, I remember the words, and they're like, don't bug her. She's trying to figure it out. She's bummed out. At the same time, we heard on the radio that the Nazi troops have landed and they are advancing. So then, out of nowhere, Paul begins to recite the 5 words for the spell,
Hmm.
much to everyone's shock. And he's like, "It's been in my book the whole time. Like, we didn't have to go to this place because it's right here in this book, in this children's book." And nobody listened to him. Um,
Well, maybe if you weren't such a jerk at the beginning of the movie, we would have listened to you.
no, Paul's the kid.
Oh, I thought he was the old one. No, that
No,
was the old
Charles
one.
is the old one. Um,
Speak up, kid.
yeah,
You could have saved us a lot of
it's
movie.
true. Hey, it's a fun part of the movie.
I was
Um,
just kidding.
it doesn't work at first, so they all start to sing the words um with some flair, and then the
Yep.
shoes begin to move on their own and as they continue to sing. Gosh, what the heck is it called? I didn't write it down.
Situation.
No,
No.
it's. I'm gonna get it right here.
Situation.
I'm gonna get it right here. Don't drive me nuts. Everyone's yelling at their screens right now. Deep
Yelling
dive
at
in
their
the
screens.
magicpod@gmail.com. My gosh, it's gonna drive me nuts.
Okay, well, while you're looking for that, a fun little fact. Did you know that Angela Lansbury, Roddy McDowall, and Robert Stevenson immigrated to the US from the UK due to the outbreak of World War II?
Oh, so it's full circle.
David Tomlinson was a flight lieutenant in the Royal Air Force. Robert B. Sherman served in the U.S. Army and was one of the first Allied soldiers to see the Dachau concentration camp. He used his time recuperating from a gunshot wound to the knee to learn about the English people and their culture. And Manfred Leiting and Fred Helmick were native-born Germans who had lived under Nazi rule,
Wow.
and they were all part of this film.
And speaking of full circle, substitutionary locomotion.
Just start with an S.
Yeah. Substitutionary
I was gonna say situationship, but that's
way.
hey, I was faster than you.
That's true. They all sing the song. More inanimate objects and clothes start to move all on their own.
Mhm,
They join the dance number, including a hat that flies out the window and scares the clergyman from earlier,
mhm,
who's creeping around. The lady from earlier that was running the evacuation school for the kids arrives to tell Miss Price that she has found a new place for the children, but now Miss Price wants to keep them.
Mr. Price is like, no, they're my children
Yep.
now. I'm going to eat them like Hansel and Gretel. Just kidding.
Rude.
Just kidding.
So
No
the
fried food in her
so,
house.
so the kids ask
She's gonna bake them
the
instead.
kids ask Mr. Brown if they could be their father now.
Yeah.
And but then he, in his con man ways, begins to backtrack and he wishes them all goodbye and he's going back to London, much to the sadness of the children.
Mhm,
At the same time that he leaves, he's going to the bus station or to the train station.
mhm,
We see that the Nazi boats have arrived. Professor Brown is waiting at the train station for the first train back to London in the morning. He's going to sleep on the bench there
mhm,
because he can't even go back to Miss Price's house. Miss Price notices the troops are outside,
mhm,
and they see her and they break into her home before she can call to help. Um, at the same time, Mr. Professor Brown is overthinking his cowardly exit while he's sleeping at the train station. The Nazi troops are not there for the war per se. They are there to use Miss Price's house because they're on a tour to increase fear in Europe, in London,
mhm.
Britain. They are there to increase everybody's fear.
In
She's
England.
in England, sorry. She is trying to put a spell on them, but she's so stressed that she cannot remember the spell. At the same
That
time,
must stink.
yeah, I mean, imagine. She's only an apprentice. Um, at the same
Like
time,
this is my calling.
Mr. Price or Mr. Brown sees images of Miss Price, like he's like miraging her, like in his dreams. But then he looks up and he wakes up to actually see the Nazis are cutting the power lines, and he fights his way to escape back to the Prices.
Mhm,
He sneaks into the house, but the cat gives him away for his involvement.
mhm,
Um, he again badmouths women for her room being a mess. But then before he can get caught, he does find the magic book and he turns himself into a rabbit to avoid capture.
mhm.
He then finds that the family is being trapped in the museum from earlier, the escape room. Right? We're up to speed here. We're at the end.
Yes. But
Uh,
not the escape room you guys are thinking
that's
about.
true. And they weren't able to escape the escape room. But the rabbit is able to sneak in.
Mhm,
He convinces, so then he turns back to himself and he convinces her to try the substitutionary locomotion spell again. So she recites the spell, and at this time, all the objects of armor and everything from the museum begin to come to life, and they start to march to the beat of a drum, literally. They begin to magically march and fight off the German troops.
Mhm.
terrifying them along the way because they're just like floating mercenaries with no humans in them.
Mhm.
It's a whole army of floating armors. There's like horses, there's like chain links, there's like bayonet people, like
Yeah, it definitely gets rather humorous.
Mhm.
Like, one of them got shot multiple times, like in the helmet, and then all of a sudden, like you see the arms come up and remove the helmet and shake it, and all the bullets fall out because there's no head
Yeah,
on
like
it.
everybody like,
And
he takes off his
the
shoe, he
guys
dumps
are
his shoe out.
like
Yeah.
just like yelling at each other in German, like they're like losing their
Yeah.
mind. And then, oh, you've not got to her yet. Okay,
So there's
sorry.
troops as far as the eye can see. They're literally everywhere.
Of all different kinds. You
Yeah,
have
all different
Scottish
nations.
troops,
Yep.
with bagpipes, and I'm telling you, if the Scottish ever showed up, I would surrender.
Because of the bagpipes.
No, because of Rob Roy.
Oh, that's true. But so all these like floating magic
Did you know
substitutionary locomotion
that
troops are fighting.
the medieval armor in that film was actually legit?
Right, I looked at.
But they made replicas for the ones that were going to be ruined.
Hmm.
Anyway,
So there's a bunch of substitutionary locomotion
going on here.
troops who are just fighting and fighting and fighting, and they're just floating um armor.
Hmm.
So then we also see Miss Price is flying on her broom,
Yes.
who advances the troops against the Nazis. What were you gonna say about that? Anything?
And the leader of the Nazis sees her.
Adolf Hitler?
No,
I love
the
this guy.
leader,
Yeah,
the Hitler,
yeah,
the
I get it.
leader of the Nazis that are here,
Hmm.
that are commanding these troops of Nazis, was looking up in the sky and saw her and started yelling in German, "There's the witch. That's a witch." And I got so excited because I actually knew what he was saying thanks to Duolingo.
But at first they don't believe that she's a witch, and then later on they're like, "Yep, she's a witch."
Das Hexe.
So the battle, they all battle while like all the armor is just creepily chanting the words of the spell.
Taking off their legs
Mhm.
and shaking them
Machine
and
gun fire is not
bullets
stopping
falling out.
them. So then the bad guy troops retreat after a bunch of hijinks filled um this whole like you were saying this whole battle. But in the battle after these guys retreat, Miss Price's house is destroyed, which breaks the spell, and all the armors just fall to the ground, officially lifeless.
Hmm.
And Eglantine herself, Miss Price, falls from the sky. But at the same time as that, the British Army, the older gentleman from earlier, the old guard,
Hmm.
show back up to like finish shooting at these people as they escape.
Hmm.
So the British Army chases off the retreating Nazi troops. Um, and we learn that all spells and equipment have been ruined, but Miss Price was successful, and she said that she no longer was built to be a witch anyway, but she was able to stop the war efforts, which what she was going to.
Hmm.
The next scene we see Professor Brown is back, and he has enlisted in the military, and he joins the marching British troops singing the song about the old guard again from
Hmm.
earlier, the catchy number. He he kisses Miss Price on his way out, and then it cuts over and like, there's no more magic. But then Paul pulls the magic bed knob out of his pocket, and
I've got this.
everybody breaks into the marching song from earlier, and it's the end of the film.
Hmm.
So he still has that. Before I talk about how I feel about this film, I would love to know if you got any more facts and how you feel about this film and your rating and fun stuff like that.
Um, I don't know if I had that many more facts. Um, like you had mentioned earlier, the movie was developed at the same time as Mary Poppins.
Hmm.
Walt Disney had started with that movie, the Bedknobs and Broomsticks, but decided it was too complicated technically, so switched over to Mary Poppins. Then they switched back and forth between the movies a few times, and then they intended to drop this movie permanently at one point. But the Sherman brothers, who did the music for both projects, insisted that Disney finish it after they were done with Mary Poppins. So the Sherman brothers you
And
have
they
to
did.
thank for this film.
There you go.
Um, and then Angela Lansbury hated what she called by the numbers acting in this movie. Due to heavy special effects, the entire movie had to be storyboarded in advance, shot for shot, and every moment was predetermined, and Lansbury wasn't really didn't feel like she was free to explore her character naturally because of this.
So, what were your thoughts?
Well,
Since this
well,
is
I
not
realized it definitely wasn't Willy Wonka. There was no four parents in the bed. Um,
so then
the whole
what?
time I was just like, oh, thank God it wasn't that movie.
I love that movie too.
I should too. Um, so IMDb gave this a 7.1.
Strong performance.
Really, you feel like it? I feel like that was kind of low for them. Anyway, I gave it an 8.
An 8.
I gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'm rubbing off on you. So then, does this
I'm
eight
like,
does this 8 make your list upon a star? Does this 8 knock off Moon
I
Pilot?
I really enjoy history like films. And this one had a good bit of story to it. Um I enjoyed the history aspects of it. I enjoyed the humor. The comedy was great. Um I enjoyed the chemistry the actors had together. I thoroughly enjoyed that there was no grandparents chilling out in a bed. Um so I guess this movie will time travel onto my list.
So Moon Pilot getting the boot. Finally.
Goodbye, Moon
Finally.
Pilot. Goodbye.
Well then, so where are you putting this on your list upon a star?
Yeah, I know you're wanting to put it way high up there, aren't you?
I want to know where you're gonna put it on your list.
All right, so my list upon a star is number 1, 101 Dalmatians. Good, solid, good. 2, The Parent Trap. 3, Sleeping Beauty. 4 is gonna stay with Dumbo. 5, we're gonna stay with The Jungle Book.
Mm-hmm.
6, we're gonna stay with The Aristocats.
Mm-hmm.
7, we are going to stay with Lady and the Tramp. 8, we are going to insert Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Solid 8.
9, we are going to have That Darn Cat. And then number 10, still hanging on, The Three Caballeros. Goodbye, Moon Pilot.
Solid.
Goodbye.
Much deserved. Goodbye, Moon Pilot. All right.
Are you surprised?
Dude, forget my surprise.
Ah.
I love this film.
Do you know how long I have waited to discuss any of this with you?
Well, whatever. I love this film. And I love this film for multiple reasons. One, it's incredibly nostalgic.
Yeah.
2, we could have showed the VHS here somewhere because I'm sure we have it, but our new setup, there's no like place to show it.
Yeah, there is, but whatever.
Well, next time. I love this film. I used to watch it at not the grandmother with the Bedknobs house, but the other grandmother's house because it was a VHS that she had all the time. My sisters can back me up on this. It is such a good film. Um, it is so much like Mary Poppins in so many ways. I think it's an A plus film. Uh, it's just it holds up. It's family fun. I gotta tell you, when I first watched this film, I was a child. I was babysat on Disney films. Everybody knows that. I had no idea about the whole Nazi stuff or the whole war stuff, but it was cool to like see like these like battles and like witchcraft and all this cool stuff. So, yes, this is making my list upon a star. Yes, this is a fantastic film to end our first year on because next episode starts 1 year for us. Um, so my list upon a star, um, I'm so sorry, Sleeping Beauty, but you had a great run, and I do love that film, but you are off the list. So my list upon a star is 101 Dalmatians, holding down the top spot, followed by the superior film of Mary Poppins, holding on to the second spot, followed by Peter Pan. It's a very, very exclusive top three, followed by Alice in Wonderland at four, and then Bedknobs and Broomsticks at number five, followed by Babes in Toyland, which just blew us away at six, Aristocats at seven, Pinocchio at eight, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad at nine, and then for 1 year, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at number 10. At one point, that was my first number one, and it's now my number 10 after 1 year. Will it stay there though? Either way, thank you for watching this. I love this film. Our next episode is our 1 year anniversary. We have been doing this deep dives. Yes, yes, we did some pre-episodes or whatever, but we have done 100 deep dive or not one. I'm sorry, I keep saying 100. 1 year worth of deep dives this week. So our next episode is our 1 year anniversary, and it is going over to the year 1972 with a film that will it knock off my number? Will it change my list? Will it knock off the first ever film? We will find out then. The first film in 1972 is a film called The Biscuit Eater, which is something that went from something very nostalgic to me, something I'd never heard of before, The Biscuit Eater. But either way, thanks for hanging out with us for a whole year. We are on Instagram. We are on Spotify. We are on YouTube, where you could have saw our cosmic creepers, Winston, who's sitting here all proper right next to us right now. We are on email. If you love this film, if you never heard of this film, any of it, but deepdivemagicpod@gmail.com. I want to thank Andy Has a Band for our theme song as always. And yeah, we'll see you next time for 1 year of deep diving the magic.
Thanks for deep
What's
diving.
that got to do with my knob?
Oh my God. Thanks for deep diving the magic.
Bye.
Bye.